If you have a hard time with boundaries, how might your life be different if you could say no as easily as a joyful yes? I'm Love Coach Mariya, and for over a decade now, I've been encouraging folks to empower their compassion so it's big enough for ourselves as well as others, and so our boundaries can become healthier than ever. You're listening to Empower Your Compassion, and on this show, we'll be unlocking transformative insights to help you reconnect to your true yes, so you can say no from that more expansive energy and get more of what you want in your relationships and your life without sacrificing your compassion. Are you ready for more love? Let's grow. Hello, gorgeous. Thank you for joining me today. I'm delighted to share with you my friend and colleague, Morgan Barkus. She and I have actually done a podcast swap, so you'll be able to find me on her show as well, which is called Your Unapologetic Life. Morgan is an empowerment coach, a speaker, as well as the host of her own show. And through a blend of emotional honesty, mindset work, and real life tools, she helps high-achieving women rebuild their confidence after a breakup or divorce by reconnecting them to their true yes, so they can step into their next chapter on their own terms without apology, shame, or settling. So without further ado, let's bring her on. Welcome, Morgan. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm delighted to have you.
Girl, I appreciate you inviting me. Thank you.
Yes. So this show is about self-love and boundaries and relationships. And I know that one of the things you work on a lot with your clients is navigating breakups and what's on the other side and reconnecting to yourself and your true desires and your true yes. And that's actually something I like to highlight a lot about boundaries. It's not always just about saying no. It's about reconnecting to your yes so that your no is in service of that. And I would just love to hear how that sort of comes up and in your conversations with your clients, and we'll take it from there.
I would say a lot of, myself included, a lot of the women that I work with and talk to are women who stayed too long in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't saying yes to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying the partnership was bad or the partner was bad. It wasn't a match for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. At the point in time where they finally thought, I think I should exit this relationship. And a lot of times, like I said, there was a point where they just realized they weren't putting themselves first and they weren't saying yes to the things that they wanted or what they wanted out of life or whatever. And so now you're single again and you're like, well, now what? Whether I haven't been single since high school, because some women, they get married young and they've decided they want a family, and that's beautiful, and they have the kids and they raise the kids. Or they've been serial monogamous and they're in and out of relationships and they're used to having a partner. And so they're looking in the mirror going, great, now what's my yes? Like whether it's money or career, where I want to live, or even how I want to decorate your apartment or your house, everything is on you now. You get to decide what your yeses are. So I would say a lot of it has to do with discovering that. Like, what do you want? What do you want? Like, and I had to do all that stuff. And I've been in and out of relationships, mostly single, and at the same time, still didn't always decide what my yes was. It was like I was reacting to things rather than being proactive or deciding what I wanted. And for me, money was the first one. It was where I had to get my power back, because prior, like in my I should say all of my 20s and part of my 30s, I didn't make great money. I chose to do jobs that were fun and weren't like career oriented. And so I was just trying things on for size and didn't have a great financial record because of that. And so then finally it was December of 2019, still wasn't making a great ton of money. And I thought, I have to get my power. I have never had my power in this area. I'm going to take charge. And I decided to finally take charge and read the books and connect with the people and list out all my debts. And I was like, oh dear, I still owe my friend $300 from 3 years ago. So there were a lot of things where I had to take my power back and say yes to myself and yes to what I wanted my future to look like. And I feel like once I got that in control, I was like, wow, now I'm feeling more powerful. And then I started to decide what I wanted with my career. And crazy enough, after I made that decision with money, saying yes to the possibility of making more money, I ended up meeting somebody that helped me get a job that made more money. And so I was like, what? I mean, that was only like 3 months later. And so I said yes to a new career, totally different career. And then I said yes to moving when the opportunity came up to get promoted in like I think it was a year-ish that I was in that new role. And I started at the bottom and then I got a promotion and got to live in a new place. And so I would say when I work with clients, it's about what their yeses are. It's the first time in their life they're listening to what they want. And even years ago, after one of my breakups, I was living in Minnesota and I thought, you know what's a no is living in the winter. Like I grew up in Wisconsin, lived in Minnesota for 10 years. I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to just sell everything I own, quit my job, and move to the Miami area. And so I did. And so that was a huge yes for me. And it scared my family. Like, why? Why are you going to leave? I was a therapist at the time and I wasn't making very much money and I didn't even enjoy the work, to be honest. And just working in an outpatient clinic. And I said yes, even though it was scary, to giving up this career that I chose to go to school for and take some chances on myself and move to a tropical region. And actually, my whole life, I used to be annoyed by when people would say, trust the process. I'd be like, what does that even mean? And now I'm old enough at 45 to look back and go, nah, everything I chose, you have these sliding door moments where I could do this or I could do that. And it has led to great things in my life and saying yes to what I want. So again, with clients, it's just really looking at what do you want? This is the first time in your life, maybe, or in a long time that you haven't decided for yourself. Everything from what you want the temperature to be in your place, because I hear that a lot with women. Like one person likes it hot and one person likes it colder. So either one person's freezing in the house or the other one person is boiling. So it's everything from what do you want the temperature set at to where do you want to live? What do you want your social circle to look like? It's reestablishing sometimes new social networks because you've said yes to having mutual friends and I don't know. It's just it's a lot of really listening and thinking about what you want and going from there and saying yes to those things. Also saying yes, speaking of yeses, um, I'm a homebody. And when I get out, I have a great time and I love to dress up and go out. I have committed to saying yes, kind of like that movie with Jim Carrey. Yes, man.
Huh?
I'm trying to see what will unfold in my life if I say more yeses than I don't feel like it or, whatever. And there's times where, yeah, you need to get your sleep and say no. So there are certain things where you have to protect your peace or your rest or whatever. And I'm trying to say yes more just in general. So I don't know if that answered that question at all, but that's when you say yes, that's kind of what I mean by that, saying yes to life.
I love it. I find also in work with my clients that when we grow up feeling responsible for other people's feelings and we need them to feel okay so we can feel okay, we develop this external orientation where we become a yes to other people and their needs and desires as sort of like this subconscious safety coping mechanism. And so like we never really develop a true connection to what our yes is. And so oftentimes when you end up in that situation where you're like, well, what am I a yes to outside of what anyone else wants? Like that's a whole journey in and of itself. Like just, I don't know. And I often think of that scene from, I think it was The Runaway Bride, speaking of movies with Julia Roberts. And she was someone who would always like just sort of chameleon and like become whatever her partner needed. And then at the altar, like freak out because it wasn't her and she'd run away. And so I think it was a journalist who was finally like going to do a story on her and was, they end up falling in love, whatever. Typical.
Of course.
Right. And I'm pretty sure it was Richard Gere again, which is cute too. But there was a scene though where he asked her like, what kind of eggs do you like? Or maybe she flat out said like, I don't even know what kind of eggs I like. And so they go on this little adventure of like going to different like cafes and bistros and trying different like breakfast egg dishes till she figures out what her favorite egg dish is. But it's like, like I said, you just get so disconnected from your yes that it can be hard to be like, I don't know. I've always just defaulted
Gone
to what other
along.
people needed. Yeah. And I do like pointing out that, in the boundaries realm and also in relationships and, loved ones are trying to have us do better, and they want better for us. And there's often this message that it's like, stop saying yes to things you're a no to, but like, you're not even checked in. You think you are a yes. Like,
Mm.
your yes is to what other people want. And like, that is your yes. And they will also tell you that you need to take care of yourself better, prioritize yourself, like that self-love, self-care thing. And I just like pointing out that in like a subconscious way, like it's a botched attempt to care for ourselves in keeping other people okay and happy and whatever. So I just like to have that little bit of compassion. Like, you are actually trying to care for yourself. You're just not, it's not really effective. So like, let's find a better way to do that.
Yeah. I was thinking about the oxygen mask thing when you were saying that. Like if you know what you want and is okay with you, then you can give to others and be present. Because I'm thinking like abandoning yourself if you're only thinking about other people and saying yes to what everybody else wants and always just going with the flow, which is good. I have a girlfriend of mine that was like this. She said, I can travel with others and I can be around other people because, I just go with the flow, like whatever and that's great, if you're in a group and everybody's trying to because sometimes you get people together and nobody can just make a decision and make it happen. You need some people to just make a decision and the other people to go along with it. And not so much in a partnership. And even though that's a fake example with the movie, when you said that, I thought, so there's a guy out there who would be kind enough to go, I want to know what you want. Don't just do what I want. Don't just have scrambled eggs because I like scrambled eggs. Actually, I was talking to somebody recently and he's like, we were talking about compatibility and he said, well, I don't drink. Is that okay with you? I was like, if you think that's a deal breaker, I mean, you do you. I'm going to keep drinking bourbon and good tequilas and my favorite beers. I mean, as long as you don't try to change me, I don't try to change you. So and like you said, there are people that go along for so long that they don't know what they want. That's bananas to me. And I wonder sometimes because I've been single most of my life, my adult life. So I've gotten to decide what I wanted my whole life. I've experimented and decided what I do and do not like. And sometimes we're talking about boundaries. One of the things I have to get better at is if I am in a relationship and I don't like something, I have to say something. Because I don't like confrontation. I don't know if it's a Libra thing. I don't know if it's my personality. I'm very outgoing and independent and like just do whatever I want. And then when I'm in a relationship, I'm not as good at that. It's like I know what I want and I just don't say it sometimes. I suppose it's because I'm anxiously attached and I don't always want to deal with the reaction if there is one. But then it goes back to again believing that there's men in the world that can hold that and not see it as an attack on them, see it more as a information. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. So I'm still working on that myself. So women that I work with or that listen to my podcast, they're in the learning curve with me because it's still something that I got some PTSD from prior relationships, so where I expressed myself and it didn't go well. And so you have to learn, one, to trust that men have the ability to also have boundaries and not see your feelings as a personal attack, but also trust yourself that you're going to be okay even if someone does have a reaction, and still hold your boundaries.
I think that's really what's at the crux of it. We're social creatures.
Yeah.
For the majority of our evolutionary history, being judged, rejected, ousted really literally meant
Attacked. You don't want to be attacked.
well,
Yeah.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
even just judged or rejected literally meant being left to die alone in the cold. So like we do have a primal fear of, and like need for acceptance and approval and all of that. So I think that's
Yeah.
something that's nice to have some compassion for and work on, right? And work around and just be like, oh, hey, little part of you that's afraid for perfectly valid reason. We don't actually need to do what you think we need to do, right, to stay safe. Like we can withstand rejection from this individual. We're not going to be left to die alone in the cold. We have a tribe of friends. We have a whole human family. We're a much larger species, population wise than we used to be. We've got support systems. We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That was a lot of my work was learning to one, emotionally regulate, and two, like you said, someone else's reaction is none of my business. Now, if I'm in a partnership with someone, yes, I care about their feelings and I want to have a productive conversation. And if I kindly and compassionately express myself, your response to that is not on me. Because that would be what? Codependent, right? So now in terms of boundaries, I mean, I shared what mine are and I'm working on. What about you? Because you're now a boundary expert and you're helping other people with that. What was your biggest lesson? And you're like, "Psh, I got to work on this boundary thing and get really good at it. And now you're in a place where you can help other people with boundaries.
For me, it was really that self-abandonment piece
Mm.
and realizing that I had that external orientation.
Hey friends, real quick, in case you're busy, which you probably are if you have a hard time with boundaries, I just wanted to make sure you know that you can go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and download a free resource for making boundaries easier without sacrificing your compassion. Again, that's boundariesthatfeelgood.com. Okay, let's get back to the show.
My first sort of like, not really red flag, but like alert, was my last relationship. I call it my crucible. It was very challenging. I learned a lot from it because I'm a little bit of a growth masochist. I like kept diving back in for more. I was like, this, I'm mining so much gold out of this, out of all of these challenges and triggers that like it's really helping me see what my sort of issues are. But what alerted me to it was early on. I think we were just like a few weeks in. I was like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work. I should probably leave. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. How many times have I been right here?
Yeah.
And I mean,
Wait, you said within a couple weeks?
at that point, yeah. So I was definitely earlier. I was like learning to see the things earlier. And I was like, but almost every relationship that I've had, I end up feeling like I'm just not really being seen and supported.
Mm.
So like, I don't think this is going to work. And I was like, but wait, this is a pattern though. Like if this is a pattern, clearly I have some relationship issues. And I've done a lot of work on my own, but it's like I need the relationship to like bring those triggers up so that I can look at them and work through them. So I
Ah,
so I went back in and I was like, what is this? And I kind of started realizing that like I was actually kind of questioning my needs that I felt he wasn't meeting. And a friend of mine was like, your needs are valid. I'm like, yeah, but there's something about these ones that feel a little bit amiss. And so I was kind of like unpacking them. And I realized that the need was for like reassurance and basically validation. And I was like, okay, I know that we do need external validation for some things. Like that's why there's peer-reviewed studies, or you're on the street corner. Is that a bird? Is it a plane? Is it Superman? Like sometimes you need other people to like double check your theories or your ideas.
yeah.
But when it comes to our emotional experiences and our worth, no one can validate that. They can try and invalidate it and you can feel invalidated, but like you're the only one who can really validate those things. And so like in that little exploration, I was like, oh, I'm seeking external validation. I know that we need external validation. Can I validate myself? Is that a thing? I didn't even know. I Googled it. Google's like, yes, you can. And in fact, you really should. And it's very important. I was like, oh, cool. So that was like my first source of empowerment. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, I can validate myself. But then I had to learn how to do that. And like that journey led me into like a whole new realm of self-love that like I thought I loved myself, but I really just liked myself. I didn't know that I had so many warts that I wasn't loving. So I had to learn how to validate myself. And in the meantime, though, here's this guy that's also like, hey, I've shown you who I am. I'm not really asking you to change because I had kind of asked him to make some adjustments in how he interacts with me. And he was like, I mean, at first he was like, sure, but then he came back to me and he was like, I'm done. I'm in my, how old was he at that point? He was in his early 40s. He was like, I'm kind of done being like adjusted by my partners. Like I am who I am. Kind of, if you can accept me, then maybe this will work. But if not,
Sure.
then let's not. But I was like, wow, you're right. You haven't asked me to change anything. And wow, what does that feel like to be accepted? How nice is that? I can return the favor. I can learn to accept you too. And
Yeah, but at
so,
what point do you realize it's not a match? Because I can understand where it's like, I have needs. This person meets some of them, not all of them. I'm okay with that versus this isn't a match. You know
oh
what I mean?
yeah, no. In retrospect, by the end of the whole, 7-year journey, I
Which is
realized,
crazy pants to me that you were 2 weeks in, you're like, I'm not sure this is a match. And then 7 years later, that's a long time.
yes, it is. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, I was right to know that it was a bad match from the jump, but I was wrong about why. And because I wanted external validation.
Mm,
That's not why we were a bad match. We were a bad match for other reasons.
yeah.
And I'm glad that I went through that journey to learn a whole lot more about myself and how to love myself. But yeah, at the time, what I figured that I needed to learn how to do was like adjust my needs. So like I started by practicing more outward acceptance, and it took me a lot longer to practice and like really embody inward acceptance. And even though I was trying to practice outward acceptance, I still wasn't. I was still trying to like, hoping or nurturing maybe some growth in him alongside some growth in me, but like it took me 7 years to be like, okay, this is who you are and this is who I am. And you're not. He wasn't capable of showing up in the way that I needed. And I wasn't capable of not needing those things. Like, and
Well,
so I
then you
just,
think about it, it's almost like having an outfit that you don't, it just sits in your closet forever, and you're like, I should give this away because it's in my closet doing nothing. Someone else might actually love this thing and wear it every day. So almost like when you're with the wrong person, both of you could be with the right person instead of trying to change each other the whole time.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I feel like alignment is really, really important. And I think that the problem that so many of us get ourselves into
Hmm.
is we're essentially either asking the other or ourselves to step out of alignment in order to be together without really realizing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's that fear again. It's like, oh, but I don't want us to part. And man, I'll tell you the hardest breakups to initiate are when like there's nothing wrong with the person. They're a perfectly good human. You're a perfectly good human. Like, and you get convinced that that means you should be able to make it work. And it's so hard to like end a relationship because it's going to break both of your hearts. It's like, why would these two good people, why should we go through this heartache of ending things, when maybe we can just make some adjustments and make it work. And it's also really challenging because there's a lot of messaging out there that encourages working on it, and I definitely I was partly reacting also to this like disposability culture where, it's just like, oh yeah, you're not meeting my needs next, and it's like, well, maybe I could do a little bit of work. Maybe I could show up a little bit uh,
Yeah.
more authentically or more deeply or something. So it's hard. It really is. It's hard to find that balance of like, being too accommodating versus being too rigid.
And that's being in the relationship. Because once you're in, there's a lot of feelings and all that. For myself and women that I work with, now it's dating and picking up on that quicker. I met a gentleman months ago. We knew each other from a prior work thing, and we were friendly. And then we weren't working together. We reconnected, and we had a nice little romantic love affair. And at first, I was like, "This is a really good human. I wonder if a relationship could happen." And I thank goodness the work I've done and what now I'm helping women do is realizing, what do I want? What do I need in my next relationship that was missing, out of alignment, whatever, in this last partnership I had? And for me, a huge thing is consistency. I don't care how busy you are. We have our phones on us all the time. And if we've spent any time together and I see how much you're on your phone, I know you're on your phone. So if you can't answer me back or even send something like, yo, I'm on a call, or I'm in a meeting, or even send an emoji that you see me, you hear me, you care, can't talk right now. Cool. This person sometimes 2, 3 days later would respond to me, and I would be like, okay. And in my head, again, I'm like you were saying, sometimes it's hard to justify not being together because you're like, we're two really cool humans that have a really good time together. I had to go, Morgan, what do you need? I need consistency. And I called him out on it. And he's like, you're right. You're absolutely. And I said, no problem. Like, we are two awesome humans that are not aligned or not looking for the same thing right now. Cool. And now we're still friends and everything's fine. I had to, and that's where it's like, it's really important for me when I work with women to help them. You're no longer in a relationship because once you're in a relationship, you kind of get clouded by all the feelings and the love. And if it's good sex or whatever it is, that was me. We had a lot of chemistry. We had a great physical connection. We were just not aligned in many ways on what we wanted love to look like, or what a relationship would look like, what day to day, what the future would look like. And so, and I had a really hard time being okay with that because I'm like, but the chemistry, and now it's nicer once you're out and you're healed and you're moving forward and you're thinking about dating again to think about those things. Like, what do I really want? What do I really need? What's a non-negotiable for me? What's some things I got some room on? And to really stick to those, I guess, for me. Like, no matter, even if it's a good human or the chemistry's good, if there's certain like non-negotiables, it's a no. And we can be friends, and that's it. For me, anyway.
I'm curious on your take and maybe what has come up in your work,
Yeah.
but one of the things that will get me to stay in a misaligned relationship and or pursue a misaligned match early in dating
Yeah.
is what could basically be called scarcity mindset. And it's like the dread of going back into the single pool. And, it just like, oh, I'm like, you go through enough, it's kind of a numbers game, and you go through enough guys. And at some point, you're like, maybe I do just have to settle, but it never goes well. And I feel like for me, I'm at a point where I've settled enough times that I'm not going to do it again. But it does tend to like make it a little bit easier to like cling to like when you find a good enough one,
Sure.
and a little bit harder to, the catch and release when you're like, oh, I go back.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I settled many a times because I wasn't necessarily happy in my life.
Yeah.
A lot of good things in my life, and I wasn't truly happy with my life. And so, and I remember one guy I dated in particular when I lived down in South Florida. When I was with him, I was happier because it was just nice to have someone around to go do stuff with, and he liked the same kind of things I liked. We were not aligned on many things, and I stayed anyway, and I really put a lot into it and future thinking this, if we keep trying, we'll make it work. Because I felt happier when I was with him than when I was by myself. So I was like, well, maybe I can make this work. And I think that's like when I meet clients who have come out of a relationship that they abandoned themselves, or it wasn't a great alignment. It's easy to be, they're not used to being alone, or when they are alone, they don't love it. So I was alone a lot. I wasn't a serial monogamous. I was alone, single most of the time and not happy. And so any guy that came along that I remotely found fun and was funny and liked to do the things I like to do, I would cling on for dear life. Even if it was unhealthy or it wasn't a match. And now I have built a life that's so fun and I find so fulfilling that a gentleman in my life would be an addition to, not me looking at this person as a source of something. And so when I'm working with women, that's what it is. It's like I said, they've shaken themselves off, they're done crying themselves to sleep, and they're like, well, now what? I'm out of survival mode. Now I'm ready to thrive. What does that mean? Do I change careers? Do I move? I mean, the one relationship I ended and left Minnesota, I needed to physically get out of there. Like I had to get out of there and completely start over. And that was what was best for me at that time. If some women can do that, let's figure out how to go do that. So I think building a life that they love so much that they wouldn't settle again because they're not desperate. They're not looking for, there's no holes, I guess, that need to be filled, or um like patches that need to be. I just feel like now I used to get lonely a lot. I don't get lonely anymore. I know if I'm sitting here and I'm like, I've been working by myself all day today, I need some human contact. I know now friends to call, places to go where I can mingle and be around people and feel that joy. Because I'm a big person. I'm a big person. I'm a big person on. deliciousness and delight. Like I love to eat delicious food and do things that feel delicious or delightful. Like I just interactions, food, experiences, music, like whatever it is. And so when I'm driving home, I'm like, I would do that day over again. I guess that's what I'm looking for in my life, and I've built that. And so that's why I want to help other women build that. So they're just so fulfilled in their own life that a gentleman would be, they don't have time or even space to want to settle because they don't need it. Someone would be in their life because it's just a wonderful add-on. It's not like they're trying to like fill some void, if that makes sense.
One of the most impactful things that I learned on my journey was basically, in the realm of codependence and getting a clearer picture of what that is and how that shows up. And also attachment, and not like attachment theory, but like in the Buddhist sense, like being attached to someone is kind of like needing something from them versus love is like, I just want you to be happy regardless of what it has to do with me.
Mm-hmm.
And like the idea of this conscious relationship where two people are already fulfilled in themselves and they just come together in appreciation of that in each other and they just enjoy each other's company. And I realized what a compliment, two things. I realized what a compliment it is to say or receive, I don't need you, but I want you. And then the second thing was how terrifying and hurtful and like awful that would have felt when I was younger and more codependently inclined. For someone to say, I don't need you, like would have just been horrible. Like it's so mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, not
And like
even
all you want is someone to ally. I just need someone to need me and I want to need them. And like
yeah.
you're supposed to go into this beautiful union where I can't tell where you end and I begin. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so unhealthy. That's no boundaries. That's awful. Don't do that.
And need, and even the want versus choice. Like I choose you.
Yeah.
Really, when you think about it, when you're in a relationship, whether you're married or not, every single day you wake up and you're choosing each other because you don't have to. You could end it at any point, whether you're legally bound or not. You can say, I don't want to do this anymore, and I don't choose you. So to be with somebody and every single day you wake up and you're like, you want to do this again? Actually, I heard that from Dan Savage. He was getting interviewed, and he said, like, he and his husband, you you only like, you get married and you think death do us part, but really it's just choosing every single day. Like you wake up in the morning, you're like, so what do you think? You want to do this again today? Yeah, let's do this again today. So it's really more of a freeing and light rather than we have to be together because we need each other. Like now
Yeah.
I'm curious, I think you and I have in common that we've been interested in personal development forever. I feel like um I don't know why I have always been the way I am. My mom said, Morgan, as soon as you could start talking, you were asking me about sex. Like I had to like figure out how to like respond and answer your questions. You had so many questions. And so she got age appropriate books and talked to me in age appropriate ways. And then I was always observing people. Like I would go to a restaurant, even as a little kid. I remember leaving a restaurant and I saw this gentleman by himself, this older gentleman, and I was so sad in my heart. I was like, well, why is he all alone on a Friday night? That sucks. So I've always been very in tune with folks' behavior and why people interact the way they do and behave the way they do and how to make it better. And then Oprah, Mariya, my mom and I watched Oprah religiously. It was like, especially in the summer when I didn't have school. I remember in high school, we would like do our chores in the morning. Mom's out there mowing the lawn and I'm doing whatever. And we'd watch the weather because I come from a farming family, a hobby farming family. So the weather was always very important. And so we'd always watch the weather at noon. And then we'd go, just play around, be outside, enjoy ourselves. And then when it's time for Oprah, we were watching the Oprah. And then we were reading the books that like Gary Zukav and, the Four Agreements with Don Miguel Ruiz and Louise Hay. You can heal you can, what's that? You can heal your life or whatever. So I was like, from an early age, like just wanting to understand. And I feel like we have that in common. So I'm curious if you dabbled in your story. I would love to hear more about like Because even in the beginning when we started talking, you said something about, what did you call yourself, a something masochist?
Growth masochist.
So yeah, say more about that. I thought that was funny.
Um, yeah, my father was a physician. He had his bachelor's in psychology and started teaching it to me as early as I can remember. And I think I was around 10. I think it was that summer he had me do this like DIY self-help course. It was like a cassette series with this workbook. I think it was called Born to Win. Um, and he taught me about transactional analysis, like what to say after hello. I like would give me all these books. Honestly, age appropriate, I don't think was quite there. And it wasn't that it was like sexual type of inappropriate, but like just couldn't really, it wasn't really at the
Intellectually,
level.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I did absorb some of it. And I think it was always, for me, it was always a lot more introspective. I've always been very compassionate and empathetic. When I was young, I was often like the mediator between my friends. If they would have some sort of conflict, I was always like really good at seeing everyone's perspective and empathizing and understanding. And so like when there was conflict, it was almost, to me, it was almost always like a misunderstanding. And so I'd be like, no, you got to see that the other person is like, this is what they're saying and feeling, and like you got to understand that this is where they're coming from, you know. And I, at some point I was like, maybe I'll grow up to be a mediator. I don't know, that doesn't really
Yeah.
sound like fun. I like it for my friends, but anyway, the psychology wise, it was almost always more introspective.
Mm. Did you keep a journal? Because I kept a diary and I wrote about all the things. I mean, 13, I started just pouring in all these thoughts I had, and I still journal today.
My early diaries were definitely a lot more it was either just sort of documenting things that
I was
happened.
gonna say, yeah, like who, what. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't hit up the why as much as the who and the what when I was younger. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like this happened and he said this and she did that. Yeah.
Well, no, more literally like a calendar, like just events.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would kind of just keep track of things that happened because I
Oh, okay.
never really had a great memory. Um, so it was
Awesome.
either very like dry in that sense or super drama, like, and it was usually about a boy and what he's doing, and either the lovey-dovey things that I'm feeling or like the horrible things that he
Yes.
did, you
Boy,
know.
when you're younger too, everything is way more catastrophic.
Yes.
Not that I haven't gone to therapy, as an adult, and who, as a kid, everything was like next level drama. You know what's interesting? The first sort of boyfriend I even had in junior high broke up with me on Valentine's Day, right before the Valentine's school dance. And so I think I've held on to that. I've never liked Valentine's Day.
Shocker.
And I'm like, I gotta let go of this weird story about whatever in my mind I created the reason what happened about me on that day and why I
Oh,
don't like Valentine's Day to this
yeah.
day. I need to let go of that story.
Very
Yeah.
understandable for sure.
And I didn't even like him that much. I mean, it was just a guy. Like, it's not
Still
like the
hurts.
love of my life or anything.
I got fired once. Is that true? Yeah. There's really only one time I've been fired, and it was a job I didn't even care that much about, but I cried because it's such a blow to the ego, you know? It's like, oh,
Hey,
what?
there's that you don't need me thing again. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yep.
Like, I'm not needed here?
Right. Um, I would also though write like in some of my journals you can see like letters that I would write to the guy without the intention of sending it, or like maybe I'll send it but let me just write it first, you know. So I
So
have
you were doing that, because don't they have like a burning or whatever? There's certain things you can like write to people and then like burn it or whatever. You were smart enough to do that way before you even probably knew that that technique was out there.
So another piece of my formative path of whatever being a
Yeah.
personal growth geek that I kind of forgot about was probably around the same time that I was roughly 10. Both of my parents and they split when I was like 1, but they were decent co-parents, which is nice for me. Um, but my dad started this program, and God, this was like 1990. What was it called now? I can't remember what it was called. I want to say LifeSpring, but I feel like that's maybe not quite right. But it was it's kind of one of those personal development, self-help. Well, it wasn't really self-help, it's assisted.
Yeah.
Those kind of personal development programs that you go in, and there's, regular gatherings, seminars, whatever, and then homework, and it's kind of this ongoing several weeks or several months, I don't really remember.
Yeah.
And then he encouraged my mom to check one out as well, and she did a different one. It was called The Wall. I don't know what that analogy was for, and Dad didn't really share as much about his experience with me, but my mom shared a lot about the things that she was learning in that. And the one thing I remember the most was, in fact, at all, I don't really remember anything else from it, but the thing that impacted me the most was something about communication and about the importance of communication. And so I then became, we could safely be called an over communicator. And I
What do
think
you think? Give me an example.
well, just like, I mean, I was 17 trying to like talk out all my process all my feelings with my partner who's 19. I'm like, I don't, this what? And I mean, I'm at a point now where I think that having healthy communication is really important. And when you're in a partnership, you have to do a lot of your processing elsewhere with yourself, with friends, with coaches, counselors, whatever. Like, do a lot of your processing on your own before you have the conversation. You can't necessarily process what you're going through in the relationship with the person you're in the relationship with. Like, that's not very healthy or fair to them either. And so that's kind of what I mean by over communicator, is that I would just like share all of my thoughts and feelings because I thought that it was really important. And I used to find it like one of the biggest tragedies in movies was when like they just weren't communicating, or they were making assumptions and they were wrong and they would miss these things.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, why don't you just say the thing? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
But then,
So
of
that
course,
was
it wouldn't be a drama. So
exactly.
that's awesome.
So tell me a little bit more though about you and how you work with clients, and if people are interested and where they can find you, where would they go?
Well, it's really easy to find me. I'm very grateful that my name is fairly unique. And so if you Google Morgan Barkus, I'm the first person that pops up. So you can find me at morganbarkus.com. And then also on social media, if you Google me, you can find my Instagram, my Facebook, my Spotify, whatever. I have a podcast called Your Unapologetic Life. It's not specific to women going through a breakup or rebuilding after that breakup. Speak to it a lot. And it's more about women just living a very authentic life, being unapologetic, like you, figuring out what your yeses are and going for it and not worrying about what other people think. I used to teach dance and fitness, and it was surprising to the point where some people, I wanted to shake them. Like they were so worried about what other people thought. And I said, why does it matter? Like, who cares if they do think one way or the other? I have a lot of Samantha Jones energy, and I love for her, it was like, she almost was like, if you don't have haters, you're not making it. Like, you're not making an impact.
Yeah.
There's people that love you, and there's people that can't stand you. Now you know you're moving. You're making an impact. If nobody cares one way or the other about what you have to say or what you're doing, then you know you're probably not affecting life in a good way. So anyway, so I just really, the Unapologetic Life is my podcast, and I just really want women to feel confident about their choices and what they're doing in their life and not apologize for it and have fun. And if they're like, if the listener is like, whoever this Morgan is, I want some more of her. I send out an email every Monday, and it's just support and inspiration and just some introspective questions to ask yourself. So you can go to morganbarkus.com and get on my email list for that. And if you do that, there's a free gift for you. I have a video. It's a 20-minute video. I like it at 1.5 speed while I'm doing other things. And it's a pump up video just to really get your mind right in the morning. I do a lot of that myself. The dose of medicine, if you will, that I like to get my mind right in the morning. So if it could be a meditation I listen to, or a coaching call I listen to, and I like people that talk fast. So I always do it at 1.5 speed. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Super cool. And speaking of that unapologetic living and Samantha vibes, I really like and carry with me Brene Brown's message that she actually, I think, got from Teddy Roosevelt about like, don't worry about what anyone has to say if they're saying it from the cheap seats. Like, what you do doesn't define you nearly as much as your presence in the arena. Like, if you're just doing it, It is so much bigger than how you're doing it or not, or messing up or being goofy, or everyone's going to have an opinion, especially when you're in the arena. Because yeah, you're going to have a bunch of eyes on you, but they're not in the freaking arena. So screw any opinion that they have about it.
I love that. Even in sports, people are like yelling, and I think you couldn't do it. This person does it all. Either cheer them on or shut up. Like you couldn't do better. You're telling them what to do, like you know better.
Right.
That's
Oh
awesome. That should
man.
be fitting in life as well. People
Yeah.
screaming at you that you shouldn't do this or you're supposed to do that. You live your own life. Don't tell me what to do. Oh, I appreciate you doing this with me. This is fun.
Yeah, and we got to swap too. So listeners, Morgan and I, we're doing a podcast swap. So I have been on Your Unapologetic Life, except you won't find it yet. We recorded it previously, but it's going to come out after this one. So look for that as well. And one other question for you as we wrap things up, just because Thanksgiving is around the corner, I'm curious how that is for you. Is it a source of stress with family, with etc., or is it just a big blissful joyful celebration for you? Has it been a source of stress for you in the past?
I am very, very grateful that my family is super low key and easy. I've never ever, when people are like, oh my God, I don't like the holidays. So, what about you? You loving the holidays or mixed feelings?
Well, mixed feelings. I think probably everyone has some mixed feelings. I generally do love the holidays, though. I feel pretty blessed. Similarly, not a lot of contention with the family, not a lot of expectations. But I do just want to give a shout out. Morgan and I are definitely fortunate enough to not have high stress on the holidays, but I know that a lot of people do. And especially when it's that like pressure from family to like do more and be more, and in fact do and be 10 million things in a tiny amount of time, and you're stressed and like you're trying to please everyone, which is impossible, and then you don't have any time for yourself, and you're staying up all night wrapping presents and shopping and spending all the money you don't have, and just there's so many obligations, or we get sucked into this sense of obligation for so many things. And yeah, I just want to say I see you if that's you and that's something that you're experiencing. And a lot of the foundational tools I have to teach about boundaries can really help with that. So,
I was just gonna say, boundaries is a good thing to have at that time.
yep.
To set expectations that feel right for you.
Exactly. Coming back to that. Yes, man.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining and sharing,
Absolutely.
swapping shows.
Well, you're welcome. This was awesome. Thank you so much, Boundary Queen.
And what a delicious delight that was. Again, you can find Morgan Barkus online at morganbarkus.com. If you would like to connect with me, please go to explorelovingboundaries.com and grab a spot on my calendar. No charge, no strings. We'll just get you set up with some foundational support so that you can stay more boundaried and connected to those you love. And if you really want to get a head start, go to boundariesthatfeelgood.com and download a free guide that's going to tell you what boundaries actually are, help you say no as easily as a joyful yes, and it includes a few simple scripts that will really help you stay boundaried and connected. Wherever you're at on your journey, I send you so much love and courage. And while you're here, please do like and subscribe, and feel free to share this with anyone you think might enjoy it. Namaste.